I hate my art. This is a sentence that I've heard a lot over the years at being part of the art community on social media, and I wanted to talk about it today because, believe it or not, I don't actually hate my art. I like it, in fact, and I think it's definitely part of growing up to kind of reflect more constructively on your work, but there are different factors that play into it, and I've received a lot of advice over the years on how to hate my art less, which have also kind of changed the way that I view my own growth and my own work. So I wanted to talk about it today and maybe give you guys some advice. Hello everyone, welcome back to my atelier. I hope you're doing well. Today we've got a little bit of a different video, so I hope you enjoy the speed paint in the back. And I wanted to talk about how to not hate your art today, because I think, especially in the age of social media, this is something that's very hard to get over, and a lot of times we end up in an echo chamber of negativity and self-hate, which stops us from growing. So I wanted to give you guys some tips on how to pull yourself out of that, because it is really hard, and I've experienced it myself for a really, really long time. First, I want to acknowledge the fact that on social media, especially nowadays, it feels like there's no space for growth. And I'm not even necessarily talking about numbers, I'm talking about skill sets. So I remember when I was like 10 on DeviantArt and Instagram starting to post my art, and for a long time I was really discouraged on just drawing itself, because I went online and I saw all these amazing artists and I felt so inferior, and I never felt as though I would get to that level of skill. So a hobby that to me previously was just about drawing and being silly suddenly turned into this pressure at 10 years old about having to compete with people like this. And looking back at it now, it was so ridiculous because I was not competing with these people. We were completely different artists. I was posting Naruto fan art and Sailor Moon fan art, and they were like professional artists. So there's very little reason on why I had to feel like this, but especially younger artists emerging onto a scene where there's essentially no division between professional and hobbyists, it can a lot of times feel very discouraging. And there's also another side of that coin, which is older people bursting onto the art scene and then seeing some really amazing 12-year-old doing artwork 10 times better than theirs, and then suddenly feeling discouraged because they feel like they're starting late. And I think I would say that at the time where I was like growing up and becoming an artist and still becoming an artist, I was considered quote-unquote somewhat good. And I had a lot of experiences with older people being like, oh, seeing you draw makes me essentially want to give up at art. And I think now that I'm older and I think my skill has kind of evened out a little bit, I occasionally do see like a 16-year-old or a 14-year-old that's like absolutely amazing in art. And I can see where people are coming from, but I don't think that art necessarily has to have, an entry age. I think the beautiful thing about art is that it's so accessible for everyone that at any age you can start. And that's also the thing, like I went to a figure drawing class the other day because I needed some figure drawings for my portfolio, and then some guy was there and he was like, oh my god, you're so amazing, I should just leave now. And this guy was like twice my age, and I'm like, well, are you doing art professionally or something? He's like, no, it's just a hobby. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's just a hobby, then like don't worry about it, right? And even if you were doing it professionally, like who says that they're gonna hire me or anyone over you? It's so I think we're always very focused on who's better than us, that we ignore how much we ourselves have improved. And that's really the no space for growth that I'm talking about. We constantly see people that are better than us and then completely ignore how much better we ourselves have gotten. And I think if you find yourself caught up in this kind of spiral, it might be time to take a step back from social media. And I had to do this a few times, especially now where I'm applying for my universities, I'm applying for jobs, I'm applying for freelance work. I had to, throughout the year, take a step back from social media and really be, hey, is my art actually lacking, or do I just see people on social media? And also, like, that applies to art schools too. Like, if you look up at like portfolio, like accepted portfolios for art school, you're gonna see the most amazing, most jaw-dropping, most beautiful portfolios. And yes, sometimes you'll just have an 18-year-old that is better than anything you could ever do in your life. But that is one person in what's going to be like a 25 people class. You're not going to see 25 portfolios that all got accepted in the same year. And if you dig more throughout, like, not just YouTube, but also social media, you're going to find a lot of portfolios and a lot of work that is up to your own standard that also got accepted. So I think beautiful works deserves recognition, but you have to also accept that there is a reason why these amazing works get so much recognition. It's because they're amazing. But that is because they're at the top. You don't have to be at the top. You can be fine in the middle, for the most part. And that also kind of brings me to my next point. It's like, are you doing art to be at the top, or are you doing it for something else? Because what are you really doing art for? A lot of times when I hear people like worrying about artists being better than them, it's people who have no intention of pursuing art professionally. It's really just a hobby. And if I'm explaining it to you like this right now, which is like, so you're just doing it for a hobby and you enjoy doing it and you don't necessarily want to do it as a job, then why worry about people being better than you? Why worry about people being, I don't know, more effective, faster than you? You are not competing for a job. And even if you were, there's a lot of factors that play into that. So you kind of have to sometimes take a step back and realize, why am I comparing myself to these people? This is something that I've only really thought about, like, I don't know, 2 years ago. I started doing artist alleys when I was 14, almost 15. And even there, in a market where you essentially have like 200 artists crammed into one hall, it was never a matter of who is the best artist. There were so many more factors involved. It was like booth presentation. It was also just talking to people and making connections, and also what people liked. There were artists with a lot of followers there, for example, which is something that a lot of people take kind of as a measurement of good or not. And there was also, I don't know, people with like no social media presence at all. Like I think I was there with about like 1K followers on Instagram, most of which were not even from my region. And I still made really good sales. And more importantly, I made a lot of friends, and I made a lot of, like, connections is the wrong thing, because that sounds very like businessy, but I made a lot of meaningful connections with people. I talked to people, I saw people enjoying my art, and that had nothing to do with how good my art was. I mean, given back then, it was not that good, but people liked the subject matter of my art. And even now, a lot of the art I do is for my own, I don't know, interest. I love world building. And I've been working on this world since, I don't know, I was 14, I think, 13, 14. And I like creating things for it, and I like designing things for it. And yes, maybe at heart, I'm more of a designer than like an illustrator, but it doesn't change the fact that I spend a lot of time drawing. So when I draw things for my world, a lot of times I don't focus on, is this good or not? I focus on, does this bring me joy? You know, does this add to the conversation around my world? There are other measures to kind of go off your art than just pure skill. I'm not saying it's not important. I do spend a lot of time improving my art, but it has started to become less relevant is not the right word, because I do think it is very important, especially for me, who's going into art as a career, but I've become less obsessive about it. And I think if you find something that you're really passionate about, you're gonna care a lot less about how much you improve or how good every piece is. And A, first of all, you're gonna improve more because you're actually drawing more. And B, you're gonna draw a lot more freely. I think one of the best examples for this is fandom. So a lot of people get into fandoms and then they do a lot of art. I remember when I was like 14 and I got really obsessive with Star Wars. I'm still trying to make as much art as I did back then, because oh my god, like that was crazy, and I improved so much. But like I was barely thinking about like improving. I was thinking of getting my ideas onto the page. And that's the thing, you have to kind of find yourself a driver for like, why do you want to do art? For me right now, it's world building. For me, it's getting my silly witches onto pen and paper. When I was 14, it was Star Wars and lightsabers and doing my Star Wars OCs. So kind of ask yourself, why do you love art so much? Because a lot of times we do have a reason, and that reason is often why we make art, and you should not forget that reason and kind of let it be sunk into a sea of, well, I have my thing, but everyone else is doing it better, and I feel like my ideas aren't that good. And that's also a thing, uniqueness. Uniqueness is a myth, at least when it comes to art. And I think people take this really, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people are always so obsessed about, oh, is my idea unique enough? Is my idea, like, I'm telling you right now, there has not been a single artist in the history of all the artists that have ever arted on this planet that has been 100% unique. And I think, isn't that the most beautiful thing in art? If you look at your favorite artist, you're gonna see them be inspired by someone or something. Maybe it's not even another artist. Maybe it's even nature. Maybe it's architecture, books. And I think you have to kind of at some point get out of the mindset of having to be overtly, quote unquote, unique, and focus more so on making it enjoyable, not just for others, but also for yourself. My main project is witches that go to school on a magical hill. That is not the most original concept to have ever existed, ever. And that's fine. It's fine. I'm not copying anything, but I'm doing the things that bring me joy to draw. And right. And it is within that very whimsy, very beloved trope of magic school or school stories where I found my niche and where I found my joy. And within that joy, I can create things that might feel unique to other things. Because here's the thing, I love a lot of other things too. I love mythology, I love tragedies, I love ballets. That's really random, but trust, it does play a role. And paying homage to all these things I love within my work creates something that feels unique. But if you really deconstruct it, it's not that unique. But it doesn't make it bad. Never in my life have I thought it was quote unquote bad. Yeah, maybe it's not able to like keep up with, I don't know, big stories, big movie, big comic. But it doesn't have to. It's my personal project. I just like doing it. And a lot of times you have to realize that having your ideas be your personal project is fine. Not everything has to be marketed, and not everything has to be seen or has to become famous. And that's something that's really difficult to kind of acknowledge in today's world, where a lot of jobs are really miserable, and social media feels like if you don't get famous, you're kind of quote unquote failed as an artist. That's not true. That's so not true. And that's where I also kind of want to go into my next point, and that is find art friends. Like, not just in real life, but also online. I've talked to a few people at a figure drawing class recently, same figure drawing class where I met the adult, and they're like, well, I would love to have art friends, but I can't get over the fact that I have to constantly compare myself. And I'm telling you right now, this is part of the experience. I have a lot of amazing friends that have the most jaw-dropping, most beautiful art that has ever existed in the history of man, in my personal opinion. And they are better than me, and that's fine. Sometimes I do compare myself. I get over that very quickly because I don't want to feel quote-unquote jealous towards my friends. And once again, this is kind of a part where you have to learn how to take yourself out of it and really look at your friend as a person and be like, why would I be jealous of such an amazing person, right? Like, isn't it so awesome that such an amazing friend is my friend? But moreover, having art friends is like a crazy motivation just to draw and get better. I did like some art courses and stuff where I was in class with other artists. And a lot of times when you will be taking these classes, you will not be the best person in the room. And that's a good thing. You don't want to be the best person in the room, because being not the best person in the room means that there is kind of room for improvement, right? The same thing applies to like art teachers and stuff. You don't want to be better than your teacher. I've had instances in the past, oftentimes when I was like 14 or 15, where I was a better artist than my teacher. I used to have teachers with absolutely no knowledge for fundamentals that were literally just an art teacher because the school needed an art teacher, so they asked some person to teach art because anyone can teach art, right? You don't want that. Why would you want that? You don't learn anything and you'll get frustrated really quickly, and then your skill levels out. Right now I have an art teacher that's actually really, really good at art and can give me like really good feedback on the work that I'm doing. And my work has improved so much. It's like crazy. Even just in like 2 months, my work has seen a crazy uprise. So not being the best person, especially amongst a group of friends, is good because you can always get feedback. You can always get advice from people. And also, can I just say, just because your friends are better than you doesn't mean that you can't give them advice either. That's the great thing about being friends with a bunch of artists. You bounce ideas around, you check each other's pieces, and you just have fun drawing with each other. Sometimes you might catch something that your friend doesn't. Sometimes they might catch something that you don't. So having art friends is a great way to kind of not just enjoy the process more, but also, keep yourself being a driver. And it's really fun because ever since I started having actual friends that also do art, I've started hating my work a lot less because you have people in your life that like your art or that are encouraging towards you. Because especially in real life, people will be supportive of your work and they will like what you do because they might not catch the 10 million mistakes that you found in your own piece. But that is because you spend 4 hours on your iPad in the dark drawing something. I may or may not do that. And they have a look at it for maybe like a minute and they just see all the amazing things. And that's also another thing. Like, I feel social media really, I think social media is a great tool for artists, especially nowadays, but it also fosters a very negative atmosphere. And I experienced this myself growing up on social media, and I don't think it's a good thing. I think social media, especially in the art space, we have normalized hating our own work way too much. I'm telling you this right now. It is not cool or funny or quirky to hate your own work. It's just not. I think a lot of us do struggle with not liking our work, but coping by kind of down-talking our work publicly does not do us any well, because there's kind of two ways or two responses that you usually get. One response is like someone will post a tweet on like, oh my god, I hate my art, and then you'll have like their art friends, oh my gosh, me too, my work sucks so much. So you just have like this negative echo chamber. Or B, you'll have people reply, no, but your art is so beautiful. And that kind of creates this notion that people will only like your art if you think it's bad. Trust, people will like your art even if you don't think it's bad. And you shouldn't have to quote-unquote punish yourself in order to gain that recognition, not just by other people, but also by yourself. You don't have to think your art is bad in order for it to be good. Your art can also just be good. Your art most likely is not as bad as you think. And once you kind of exit these very negative spaces, you'll find that there's a lot of people who really do enjoy your work. And I think that is mainly something that happens with younger artists. I definitely remember it happening more when I was younger than now. And I think it's very harmful, especially for younger kids. Say you're in like, some of you watching might be between the ages of 12 and 15, which is a very crucial age, especially where a lot of people start coming on social media, especially like to post their art and share their work. And I think it's just important to acknowledge that these kind of echo chambers do exist. You can't necessarily do anything against them, but it's important for you to be aware of them so that you don't fall into it, because you're very young and you might actually be really good for your age, especially like nowadays with all this like free art education online. It's crazy how quick you can improve, but you should focus on that improvement instead of tearing down your art and seeing all the mistakes. And that also kind of leads me into one of my last points, which is constructive criticism. When I say don't hate your art, I don't mean don't acknowledge the mistakes you make, because if you do want to become a better artist, it is actually very important for you to acknowledge what you're weak at. For example, I'm not very good at environments, and that is something I'm actively working on improving. But I try to not make pieces of art where I do an environment and I see it's really bad and I'm like, oh, this is garbage, I hate it, I'm going to quit the entire piece. The thing about art is you can always make more. There's always another day, there's always some more time at some point. If you make a bad piece, you already made that piece. That's it, you already made it. So if it's not good or not up to your expectations, you can acknowledge, hey, this is not good, but I'll do better next time. And if you find yourself not liking a piece, I think it's very important to ask yourself, why do you not like this piece? It's very easy to just say, I hate it, and then toss it into a corner or delete the file. But that's not helping you. It's not helping anyone. And I used to do this so often. I have so much of my old art that I just don't have anymore because I used to just throw it away or delete it. And that never helped me. Now when I do something, I look at it and I'm like, I don't like this. Why do I like this? The colors look too muddled. The colors don't work. The light doesn't make sense. The forms don't make sense. That is all things that I can work on. It's the same with an exam. If you fail an exam, you're not going to be like, I'm stupid. No, you're going to be, I didn't know calculus very well, or maybe statistics was my weak point. Treat it like such. Treat your mistakes as something constructive to be worked on. I know art can be very subjective, but there are fundamental skills that are able to be improved upon, and you should take that constructive criticism not just by yourself, but also by other people. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, but all art is good art. I think that is the same as saying I hate my art, because it's not constructive and it doesn't bring you anywhere. There's also not a lot of value in being like, yeah, all my art is great and I've never done anything wrong. I don't do that either. I like my art because I like the subject matter. I like drawing my silly witches and my OCs doing silly things. But I can also look at it and be like, I like this piece, but the anatomy here was off or the light here was off. And that's the thing. Two things can be right or wrong at the same time. You can like something and still see an error within it, and that's fine. Nothing's perfect. And ultimately, I think it is this change of mindset to go from something very final, very finite. I think hate is a very strong word, and it is very final. Hate, okay, I'm going to toss it around. I'm going to delete the file. You have to, and that comes with growing up, and that comes with growing as an artist. You have to learn to adapt to a more constructive and more self-respecting mind space, because you do deserve respect. And you do deserve to like your art, because there are a lot of things to like about it. We live in an age where a lot of people are scared of coming across as arrogant or stuck up or even delusional for, liking the things they do or not hating themselves. And that is a thing that's very intentionally designed by social media. And this is also my last point. Deficiencies and insecurities are designed by social media to sell you things. And it's kind of hard to think about it, especially like in a space that's powered by like fandoms and stuff, because the art community feels very disconnected from the usual like influencer marketing that we see on social media, but it is still part of the space. And the absolutely easiest way to sell you something is by making you feel inferior, by making you feel like you're lacking. I mean, everyone knows that like beauty marketing targets women's insecurities that they by themselves created. So why should it be different in art? We're on the same platform. We have similar companies advertising to us. So this inherent insecurity of not wanting to come across as someone who is not lacking or as someone who's happy with their things comes from a culture that is created to sell you things. And once you realize that, you start realizing that there is actually very, very little reason to hate the things you do, because your art deserves to be liked and you deserve to like your art. And yeah, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please let me know your opinion in the comments, leave a like, and maybe subscribe if you want to see more.